So this video will be on the Pisces new moon. I do have a few announcements to make beforehand. So for people who are watching this video later on, I'll put a timestamp at the top of the comments so you can skip the announcements and get right to the meat of it. So, hello everyone. So I got some exciting changes happening here on the channel and just with my astrology in general. I've felt the need to switch things up. You know, I've had a rather consistent, polished style over the last couple of years, and I find it's getting a little repetitive for me. So I'm a Sagittarius, so for you Sages out there, for you Aries out there too, we need to avoid repetition, tedium, boredom like it's kryptonite. So that's what I'm doing. I'm shaking things up. So I think this is the first live stream I've done, at least doing a lunar video. So I'm adding a bunch of other stuff though. So we're going to be doing more live streams. And, oh, there's another big change. I usually do guided meditations, as most of you know, at the end of these videos. And I've, over the last couple of years, received quite a few requests to separate the meditations from the astrology for whatever reason. And I've decided to do that. So what I've done is I'm no longer going to do the meditations at the end of these videos. However, I'm still going to do them. I'm just going to upload them to my new podcast. So I'm creating a podcast. It's called Expanding Consciousness with Bryan Colter. So far, I think it's just on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And there is a meditation that goes along with this video today, and I'll put a link below. I think the link's already there, actually, so that you can access the podcast and do the meditation. It just kind of makes more sense because meditations don't really need the video component because, you know, people have their eyes closed. So I'm just going to put it on the podcast, and I'm going to actually start doing some podcasts where I'm doing more collaboration with other astrologers, and we'll just talk about whatever subject we want related to astrology. And that one, I don't know how frequently I'm going to do that. Hopefully maybe twice a month or something like this. And the theme here that I want to transition more towards, it's just more interactive. You know, those videos I was doing before, it's just me and my lonely microphone and camera. And I was just, you know, I was like, what's missing? What's missing? It's like, oh, others, you know. So here we are doing chat. I'm going to do my best to pay close attention to the, somebody says medications are fabulous. Yeah, I think you meant meditations. Well, maybe you meant medication. Meditations could be medication. It's the healthiest kind. So we're going to be doing more interactive. So these live calls, and also and the podcast, another big announcement I have is I'm going to open a Patreon. I'm doing Patreon on March 1st. That's when it officially launches. And if you want to be notified when that launches, I recommend joining one of my social medias, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or my monthly newsletter. That'll come out on the 1st, where I will tell people about that. I'm very excited about that. It's going to have 5 tiers. And there's going to be more of a focus on, I'll be doing guided meditations there too, live guided meditations, but it's going to be more of a focus on teaching astrology. I want to go much more towards teaching this year. And my solar return chart, just the theme of that solar return chart for this year just hits me over the head of you got to teach more. Okay, so I'm going to be doing that. And also on that note, I have an upcoming class. It's going to be April 9th, although I haven't officially announced it yet, about a Neptune. It's a Neptune intensive. And as many of you know, the major event of this year, at least one of them, is the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. Of course, I'll talk about that a little bit today. That happens on April 12th officially, but it's very much the major feature of this year. And in celebration of that, I'll be doing that Neptune intensive just a couple days before, and I'm going to call it Unlocking Your Inner Mystic. So I'm excited about that too. So those are the changes, and before I dive into the astrology, I just want to double check. Okay, cool. Good feedback. So yeah, thanks for joining me. And we'll see how this goes. This is kind of a trial run. And please let me know either in the chat here or in the comments later if you liked it better or worse. And, we'll just go with the flow. I'm a Sag, as I said. I got a Virgo moon, a lot of mutability in my chart. So going with the flow is a good strategy for me. Okay, so one of the cool things about this live streaming is that I can share my screen. So that's super cool. I'm going to share the chart so we can look at the symbols together. So let me just change some things here. Okay, you should be able to see the chart now. And I'll just get an affirmative from, Terry's here. Hello, Terry. She's been very, actually, this was her idea for me to do this live because she does the live calls all the time. So she, because I was talking to her the other day, I was like, I want to do some changes, and she recommended this. So thanks for joining the party. So can you guys see the birth chart or the chart itself? Once I get the affirmative, we'll dive in. Okay, I think we're good to go. So this is the Pisces new moon. This happens officially on March 2nd at 9:35 a.m. Pacific time. I think that would be 5:35 p.m. UK time. And I'm very excited about this event. I mean, there's some tense stuff going on too, which we're going to have to look at. But just look at this beautiful rolling stellium here, all in Pisces. And this is the new moon. Here's the sun, here's the moon. They're right next to each other. That's a new moon. And really the new moon cycle happens on this, it starts on this day, but really new moon cycle continues for about 3 or 4 days. But a lot of these other events extend way beyond that, really a couple weeks. So we're going to be describing the energy of the first couple weeks, but it's important to always take a look at the new moons and full moons. Especially the new moons is like, it's a time for new beginning, a very Piscean new beginning. The Pisces energy is so strong here because you have the modern rulership of Neptune and the classical rulership of Jupiter, both the planets that rule this sign in their own sign. And Jupiter especially is super close to the new moon itself. And of course, this is highlighting that aforementioned event I just talked about, which was the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction that happens on April 12th. So this, from now throughout March into April, and then even into June, that's going to be the major focal point. And it's starting, the big wave is starting right now. And it's a good, new moons are always about new beginning. Okay, so it's also important to realize where these stellium of planets are happening in your own personal chart. You can see this inner ring here, 1 through 12. These are the houses of your chart. And if you don't know how to find your own personal birth chart, you can go to my website. I have a $15 45-minute tutorial teach you how to do that. Or you can just Google it and probably figure it out on your own. And you want to know where these stellium of planets are in your specific chart, which house, because it'll help you to figure out where this new beginning needs to happen. And to really lean into the Jupiter energy, which is so strong here, and say, how am I underestimating myself? How in this area of my life am I settling for too little? Because ultimately, yeah, I mean, Jupiter is the lucky planet, the planet of expansion, the greater benefic. It's a beautiful planet. But when we contemplate the evolutionary intention of it, as we do here with this style of astrology, it's to expand into life, to have more faith in ourselves. And expansion is such a dominant word here, because whenever Jupiter and the sun come together in the sky, there's that gravitas, there's that immense energy, because they're the two biggest bodies in our solar system. So how can I take up some more space? All the planets orbit the sun. Jupiter has like 79 moons orbiting it or something like that, okay? And how can I do it in the spirit, the motivation of Pisces? Because signs are motivational. They're like intrapsychic processes, and they're psychological in nature. So driven by the goal of Pisces, which the high end of Pisces is, especially with Neptune in the house, is cosmic consciousness, enlightenment. I mean, I know those are abstract notions, but they are the essence of Pisces. It's the raindrop landing into the ocean, becoming one with the ocean, so to speak. You know, consciousness becoming transparent to the divine. And the loftiest goal with these energies, especially this year, it's been prevalent since 2012 when Neptune entered Pisces, but this is the crescendo of how can I sprout angel wings, you know? How can I have more faith in myself, in the divine plan, expand into life, and no matter what's going on in my own personal life or in the world, how can I keep a very high level of consciousness, okay? So keeping that in mind when you choose this new beginning. Now, meanwhile, you have this set of energies over here. I think you guys can see my mouse cursor. I made it rather large for this video. This is a very different energy, needless to say. I talked about this is Venus here, divine feminine, masculine, Mars, and then Pluto. So here they are, this triple stellium, all within 1 degree of each other. Pretty amazing, in the sign of Capricorn. And I talked about Venus, Mars in the last video. Divine feminine, divine masculine right next to each other in the sky. It brings about that heat, that passion, and in a lot of cases, sexual passion, you know. So if you have Mars and Venus conjunct in the sky right now in the 7th or 5th house of your chart, or even the 8th house of your chart, all right, have some fun. But don't forget to be responsible in Capricorn fashion. Being silly here, obviously, but it's a time of high passion. I talked about before too, perhaps there's a passion project in your life. Project is a good Capricorn word. Again, look for the house that it's located. But really, the major additive here is Pluto, the god of hell. So we have Mars, the war god, feeling passionate, more passionate than normal, because Venus is right next to Pluto, the god of hell. So, I mean, these archetypal fields, you could take this in so many different directions, but if I had to distill them down to one root word, it would be intensity. And there is some intensity in various pockets of the world right now, okay? And things are heating up. That's just the nature of these planets. It's intense. This feels intense, this section of the sky, the planets, you know, the energy they represent. And there's kind of a war general energy here, a sternness. Okay. Now, how do you work with that? Well, we recognize the heat, the passion, the volatility. Pluto, you know, all three of these planets are really activating this south node of the moon. You can see this blue line here. This is a sextile, which is known as a positive aspect. But this stellium is really heating up this south node. Not only is it an aspect to the south node, but Scorpio has 2 planets that rule it, Pluto and Mars. Boom. So they're in aspect to it, and they rule the south node, heating up really the nodal axis as a whole, but especially this south node. And when we look at this cocktail of energies here, it makes me think of, you know, with the nodes of the moon, it's the collective karma. The karma has ripened for us. Of course, the nodes of the moon were in Sagittarius and Gemini from mid-2020 until all the way through till the end of 2021, where South Node was in Sag. People were very fixed on their ideas, their beliefs. They thought it was the one truth, and there was, you know, the words I used to describe it before was the world was drunk on religion, fixed set of ideologies and belief systems. Okay, we saw a lot of that, and now we've moved into Scorpio, where it's much more about charged emotional material. I mean, it's known as the Scorpion in astrology, and as soon as we talk about Scorpions, we're in the right poetic territory, because scorpions scare us, you know. So we have charged emotions. Excuse me. If we see a scorpion on the ground by near our foot, you know. So it's about woundedness ultimately, especially with Pluto activating it. Okay. And we want to always describe the south node more suspiciously or negatively or askance, because that's what the nodes are. We're trying to grow beyond the nodes, the dark side of the south node, and embrace the higher octave expression of the north node in Taurus to heal from the collective karma. So south node in Scorpio over this period of time, it's going to be in Scorpio until July of 2023. People will be more reactive. Their inner wounded child will come out to play. Temper tantrums, especially now with these energies. And with Mars, we want to highlight anger, rage, conflict. Okay. And of course, there's been a lot of anger and rage that's been building up over the last couple of years because we've had some stressful events we've been working with. Okay. A lot of that coming out now. But as we're seeing we've got more to unpack here, but the energy is pretty calm and supportive through these nice blue lines, a lot of sextiles, a lot of trines, not a lot of hard aspects. The only one hard aspect is this Saturn-Mercury square the nodes, and it's not even really strong yet. So although these energies up here is a bit foreboding, we got to remember it's kind of outgunned and outarmed by this spiritual essence over here, you know, in the other section of the sky. And you know, you could make doom and gloom reading about this if you want, but I don't think it's going to work out that way. So in terms of on the world stage, I think some of these things are going to resolve themselves. Could be wrong. Okay. The future is not fixed. It's probabilistic, but I'm very hopeful. And that's a good way to work with Jupiter now, you know, about faith, about hope, about optimism, dreaming, especially with it being in the sign of Pisces, the dreamer, about a better future. So I'm sorry if there's any questions in the chat. I'm just focused on the chart right now. If I start reading, I'm just going to get distracted and totally thrown off my thought process. So let's talk about this square here. You got Saturn in its own sign of Aquarius. It classically rules this sign of Aquarius. It's next to Mercury, also in this sign. And a square is a hard angle. It's 90 degrees. And as you can see, it's about, 8 degrees shy of exactitude. But it's coming in strong. It's coming in hot. We call it, as astrologers, an applying aspect. So the square is applying, which means it's happening really fast because the nodes are retrograde. They're going backwards towards the direction that Saturn is going, and Saturn is going full speed towards them. So it's applying. So you could make an argument that the square is very active right now, but it's going to get stronger over the next couple months. And it's going to be a dominant feature. I'm going to have to repeatedly bring it up over the next videos coming up. So Saturn and Mercury in an air sign. Air signs are on the mental plane. Here it is, Aquarius. And Mercury is of the mind. It's of our intelligence. It's of our speech template, how we communicate. So it's a very heady planet in its essence. And even Saturn is kind of realistic, practical, pragmatic. So this feels like very cerebral, heady energy to me. Here it is in a hard aspect, a challenging aspect with these nodes. We recognize the challenge, the dark side of Scorpio. We'll talk about how to work with Taurus here in a second. But the potential of some temper tantrums, especially now, you know, is in the air. And when somebody is emotionally triggered, okay, oftentimes if somebody comes at them in a cerebral way, kind of a problem-solving Saturn and Aquarian way, like, okay, you're triggered, let's work on the solution instead of focusing on the emotion. And then, of course, the person who's feeling the emotion feels like the cerebral person's not honoring the emotion they're feeling, so, you know, it doesn't usually help. But that's what this feels like. It's like Saturn is saying, you should be more reasonable and not be so reactive. And also recognizing that these temper tantrums, these triggers, have consequences. So this is very much wanting to solve the problems in the heat of battle, the emotional battle, okay? And it's not going to help so much. It's going to cause more friction. That's the nature of a square. It's going to be more challenging. It's going to really cause this nodal axis to be very obvious right now. Now, we want to go towards the north node, which is in Taurus. So I always find it's useful to, as we enter into Taurus, recognize, okay, Taurus the bull. And we don't want to think about the ferocious bull. The Spanish bullfight has kind of given us a distorted view of the bull. It's just a cow. You know, it's a peaceful creature. And really, Taurus is about any animal. It's about animal instincts, totem animal, the spirit of the animal, the instinctive qualities of the animal, the present tense instincts, and peace. Ultimately, it's the sign of peace because it's ruled by Venus, the goddess of serenity. So when we contemplate what is the A+ version on the report card of working with Taurus, as we try to allow it to be the antidote for these darker motivations of shadow side Scorpio, it's about cultivating more of an inner peace. Okay. So remembering that the simple things are the important things. Here's a simple thing, breath, you know, just breathe in, breathe out. It creates this peacefulness, this present tense body-centered awareness. And actually that's a good strategy if we are triggered, because sometimes our triggers come out. I always pictured in my mind like a little gremlin. It's come out to play in our etheric vitality. And that's what it wants to eat, is your chi, is your prana. And now if you feed that negative emotion, negative thought, it's going to feast, right? So if we just, okay, I'm triggered, breathe, you know, breathe deep into the belly, do that for a few minutes, you gain control of your etheric vitality field, and then the subconscious patterning that was triggered will subside, will dissolve within you. And then you've got the A+ on the report card. You've been triggered and you've dissolved that into peace. That's the polarity between one polarity potential when we talk about like working with it through the evolutionary lens of going from the psychodrama to an inner peace. You know, of course we could do that on a personal level, but also we're trying to do that as a collective. That's the transiting nodes, the collective karma. And we can even take this to extremes, right? Returning back to this Pisces energy, the sign of compassion, the sign of love, gratitude, all these high consciousness emotions, at least on the positive side. There's going to be plenty of negative with this too. And then we go back to Taurus, on the collective, what's the best way we could operate this? Well, okay, peace. And then Taurus is an earth sign. It's of the earth, literally, world peace. Doesn't mean we're guaranteed that. And in fact, the likelihood of world peace is statistically unlikely, but that's still a worthy goal, especially when all this hope, optimistic energy is supporting it, you know. More towards freedom and liberation. That's the Uranus piece. Notice how this 4-planet stellium is in this beautiful positive sextile, supportive energy. You know, Uranus is very helped right now. You know, as many of you know, this ongoing Saturn-Uranus square has been the dominant feature all throughout last year and even now. But Uranus is really helped right now. That's why I don't think stuff that's going on is going to spiral out of control. Again, I could be wrong, but I'm very optimistic. Okay, so world peace as the goal, and in fact, the meditation that you can see on my podcast in the link below is called World Peace. You know, that's the whole focus of the meditation, and that's one way of helping that, doing our own small part to bring about that goal, to bring more peace within our own, you know, psychic, astral body, whatever you want to call it, but also within the world. And you're doing it, if you do it through meditation, you're doing it in a very Neptunian Pisces way, you know. Again, that goal to sprout angel wings. Now, you might think, okay, well, I'm not seeing a lot of angel wings in the world. Fair enough. Me neither. There's not an epidemic of enlightenment on the planet, okay? But we're also going to see a lot of shadow side of this stuff too. You know, one component of a lot of Pisces energy in the air for us is more sensitivity. It's a water sign. And some astrologies even call it the sign of ether. They even give it a different element because ether's at a higher dimension of reality. I actually like that idea. The element of ether. So people are more psychically sensitive. There's a lot going on, a lot of stress in the world. People are more drawn to escapism. That's the dark side of Pisces. Okay, that's more the D- on the report card version of this, which would then slow your evolution. So addiction, escapism, and on the more positive side, it can make for some great art too. But also, here's another big one, mass hallucination, you know? So people being a bit lost, especially with all these dark side Sag belief systems over the last couple of years. People are getting more dramatic about it now through the Scorpio, okay? But really the loftiest expression is inner peace, okay? And raising our consciousness. That's the whole point of Neptune being in Pisces joined with these planets. So how am I underestimating my own level of consciousness, my own spiritual life? How can I claim more? I'm due for a victory in terms of my level of consciousness. And Jupiter is the planet of victories. And if you work with it in this way, and again, expand into life, that's when the so-called lucky planet is super strong and shows up for you. So again, look for where these energies are in your chart, whether it's this fat stellium here, okay, as I described it, or this stellium here, more the passion project. Okay, look for that. And that's how you can get a much deeper level of exactitude and detail on how you can work with these planets in your own personal life. Okay, so here I am generalizing to a wide audience, but it's helpful to know your own chart. So in my opinion, those are the core evolutionary intentions, with the goal being to expand our consciousness. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I've been seeing the chat feed go on the side of the screen. Sorry I haven't paid much attention to that, but I actually enjoyed this. I feel more enlivened just doing it live like this. I have a Leo rising, so, and my chart ruler's in the 5th house, which is Leo's house naturally. So this performative quality, it really helps me do better work, I feel. So hopefully you guys feel the same. And I wish you the best of luck during this lunar cycle, and happy evolving. Okay, take care.